the there we go. So it'll be available later. Please keep your audio on mute unless you're talking or want to ask a question, because that helps everybody else out. And we'll be monitoring the chat feature. So it's on the bottom of your screen there. You can chat anyone specific or in general. So we'll watch that if you got questions. I think this one's going to be just open. Let's ask questions. Let's get dialogue going. I'm Mike Whirling, a technical specialist agronomist with the Allen County SWCD. I also farm, a conservation advocate in restorative agriculture. I think that mentoring and helping other farmers, other people, is the most important thing we can do. So this morning, we're going to start off with Leigh Rowan from the Fort Wayne Farmers Market. She has, I believe she was one of the founders of that and started it. So this will be a good part. We're going to move on to Ken Zimmerman, Marilyn Myers, Ben Huffman, and Chris Knipstein after she's got her part done. And let's get dialogue going. So Leigh, you're welcome to kick us off.
Okay, I'm going to be just speaking about, the farmers market, what the steps that we go through, and what we expect from the vendors and why we expect it. So the first part is really the application, and it's under Vend With Us Today. And we didn't used to separate out by category. But now we do, because we found that on the applications we could ask better questions, which gave us better information. And a couple of years ago, I started then asking, future expansions, so we can track the growth of the vendors, or if, some people are happy with status quo, and which is fine, but it also gives us some base data for us to look at and see how things are progressing for our vendors, without getting into, financial specifics or anything like that. We've also have added in certifications and organizations that they belong to, because as we build their profiles on our website, because each one will have an individual profile for their own web page, and that helps for the community to learn about them. And we have found that with an early introduction prior to the market starting, or while the market is going on, when we do a social media shout out and promote their page, that we see an uptick of information. And it kind of helps start that conversation between the community and this new vendor, and which builds their business faster versus that, I don't know, like the dating period, so to speak, of where people are just kind of curious on what they do. So it just helps the vendor get launched into the market a lot sooner. We also, ask about, obviously, about their social media, if they have a website, those kind of things. Talk about, because we're a year-round vendor, we do technically have 2 seasons. We have October to May, which is our indoor season, then May to October, which is our outdoor season. So there are discounts that we give to our year-round vendors, and they get some other perks, so to speak. With the vendor application, we can ask specific questions, like in, under like the meat category, do you sell eggs? Will you bring a scale to this? That lets Justine, the girl who does our paperwork collection, that she needs to collect products, and licenses for people to sell eggs. If you bring a scale, then that lets us know that we need to make sure that it's got the right year, inspection sticker on it. Do you sell non-food items, flowers, plants, beeswax? That lets us know that you need a retail merchant certificate. And a lot of businesses aren't familiar with that. And so we help them, get the retail merchant certificate and help them find the paperwork. Do you plan on sampling food? anybody can sample food at a farmer's market, but this lets us know what they're going to be doing so we can make sure that they do it properly within the Board of Health's guidelines and regulations. Do you have any items that are require temperature control? This lets us know that you need a farm market permit if you're going to be doing such a thing, and speak with the Board of Health. We recently added, will you be sampling and serving alcohol and wine? Because we have a growth of industry, with hard ciders, local distilleries, breweries, those kind of things. And so then we get into specific Indiana laws for those type of products. And so we recently added that to all the categories just so we don't miss anything, because we recently had kind of a snafu because there was a misinterpretation by one of our vendors. And then further down on the application, it's, once accepted, I will provide liability insurance for participating at the Fort Wayne Farmers Market. Insurance isn't necessarily just for food. It's also for the fact that if your tent is not properly secured, and it rolls over onto another vendor's product, like let's say there's a pottery next to you and your tent blows over and bumps into it and knocks over all of our displays, you are financially responsible for all of her broken products. So liability insurance protects you from many fiscal repercussions for that individual's loss. If you don't have proper insurance, then it falls upon you personally, for your family. Once accepted, I have, or am willing to get a retail sales certificate. That goes back to, are you selling taxable items, or no, I am not selling taxable items. So again, that just helps us define and for the vendor to understand what is and isn't taxable. And sometimes people don't always understand what is and isn't. And so we have to work with them in that regards. And then we, about 2 years ago, added this section, select the ones you are certified in or trained in, which is first aid, CPR, AED, crowd control, emergency response management, and then none. And the reason why we did that is we really felt that it was more important to make sure that we had an appropriate, accurate list of the vendors that are in attendance. So in case there is a medical emergency, that we can respond more appropriately for a disaster. And as the market grew, when there was just like 20 vendors on Saturday, the crowd was minimal and it was manageable. But when you get into 70 and 80 vendors and you're so spread out, you don't necessarily who knows what. And so to better assist, we can help the public by being more prepared. And this is just part of our being more prepared. And actually we had a girl pass out and fall out on the street, and they called 911. And because our location is right around the corner from a fire station, and they were there before we could even get a vendor to go down there and assist. I mean, they were so fast, which is great that we're that close. So I mean, it's still one of those things that to be prepared and to have a disaster plan is part of being a market manager and being responsible to the public. Is there any questions on the paperwork or the application at this point? Pretty quiet.
Yeah, there's no questions on chat, so we're watching that. If anybody wants to chat, and we can type that in.
Okay, yeah, if there's any questions or anything. The other part, when we talk about farmers markets is, we as a market really try to support the vendors in their decision process and growth and help them facilitate that. We are working for the vendors Monday through Friday beyond just the Saturday. And part of that is making sure that the public has access to them and can find them, with our, web pages for them. When we talk about the paperwork, this has also triggered some other responses within the community, which is the grocery stores are now using our website as a shopping list. So I developed the product directory about 2 years ago. And so they are, if the grocery store is looking for a local soap vendor or eggs, then they can actually just look under eggs and find who sells them, and then work with those various individuals to become a partner to sell at their grocery store. We've had the restaurants use our website where they're looking for products and to start conversations. So it's one of those things that we always just try to facilitate growth within the community through the farmers market as a tool. I often talk about how the farmers market has become an incubator for small businesses and for their growth versus just a farmers market, because we're more of like an incubator that just happens to put on a farmers market that includes all these, local businesses.
Hey, where's the farmers market located? Where are you guys in summer and winter?
Currently this summer, we are at McCulloch Park. It's at 1795 Broadway, which is right across from Electric Works. We worked with the City Parks Department starting last year to possibly do the move. And then I worked with the city, about with the street permits and things of that nature. And then from there, we worked with our vendors to talk about why I felt like the move was the right move. And I really felt like I needed the buy-in from the vendors. And it was hugely favorable to move to the park because we'd outgrown our street section on Bar Street, and we were actually restricting businesses growing because of if we would have stayed at Bar Street. So we've had several vendors that went from a 10-foot space to a 20-foot space, and we've had new vendors come in to offer a variety of products, and we wouldn't have been able to do that if we stayed at Bar Street. We would have had to restrict the number of businesses and how they grew, and that wasn't cohesive to us growing into Electric Works and to provide the community even more. Now through the indoor season, this fall will be at Parkview Field. And starting October of 2022, we're supposed to be moving into Electric Works. So we're all hoping that'll be true. But we do have Parkview Field on hold for October of 2022, just in case. I like to hedge my bets.
Do you charge? Is there a cost for the vendors? How does that work?
Yes, there is. We actually have probably one of the most complicated pricing scales. And I say that because we allow the vendors to be a guest, which is, just a flat fee every Saturday. And then we let them choose between weekly and then like second and fourth Saturday or first, third, and fifth Saturday. And then if they apply to be a year-round vendor, then that includes, then those options then for the indoor season. So once we get a vendor set up, there's just one application per year, and which streamlines a lot of effort on their part. And then we just collect the paperwork. And then if it expires, Justine's got a calendar that sends a reminder out saying, hey, we need a new copy of your insurance or Board of Health inspections or your licenses and this type of thing. We really like to give our year-round vendors a variety of discounts with, like our year-round vendors get like a 10% discount for the whole season. We provide payments where they can make 5 payments throughout the year to help them budget. We also, if the vendors pay off in advance for the year-round fees, then we give them an additional discount. So yes, we do charge is the simple answer. The harder answer is what we charge because it varies. So
So what's the best way if someone's interested to contact you? How's the process work?
Most of the people will send us an email for the initial contact, which we do have a form on our website, to contact us, or we have our email if they don't want to fill out a form. And then from there, I help them understand the scope. And if they're really not ready to take the full step into the Fort Wayne Farmers Market with insurance, and they're just kind of dabbling and they're not really sure, then I actually send them to other markets where they can see if this is a viable business, and if they want to grow into the Fort Wayne Farmers Market, because we are a very large, busy farmers market. And some people are overwhelmed with that. And other people are like jumping in full force, 2 feet, So it really just depends on the individual and how comfortable they are. So we recommend all the other markets and tell them about the times and the places, and work with them to find what really suits them.
Hey Lee, what are some certifications that a vendor would need to be part of the farmers market?
Some of the products, like I went over with the application, the retail merchant certificate, that's so you can collect sales tax. That's for a non-food item or a food that is ready to eat. So if you hand somebody a fork, a napkin, any eating utensil, you're supposed to be charging sales tax. So a food vendor, I really have to caution them sometimes, because like I used to sell miniature pies and people were like, do you have forks? I'm like, nope, because I'd have to charge you sales tax. So it's just one of those things that you just have to be more prepared to be observant to what the person really does. A beekeeper, he usually sells just honey. So he's not aware that a lot of times that he has to have a retail merchant certificate for his wax candles or his beeswax that people use for other reasons. So it's more of an education process. The farm market certificate from the Allen County is just this county specific. It's not a state thing. And it has to do with like Ben and Ken both have to have it because they keep their meat cold. And so they have to be inspected by them and be issued this permit. I worked with our pie lady. She had to have one because she wanted to sell pumpkin pie and sugar cream pie and peanut butter pie that all need to be refrigerated. So she was able to get a farm market permit. The people who prepare food on site through the Allen County need an offsite permit, or they need another type of permit, where they use a commercial kitchen. You don't have to have a commercial kitchen to serve at the farmers market. A lot of them with the offsite, if you prepare it on site and you buy your product from a reputable location, then you can actually make things on site through the Board of Health. So that is like smooth moves. She goes out before the market starts, goes to the grocery store, buys all of her produce, fruit, things of that nature, to make her smoothies right there. But she has to buy them that day and be able to prove that she bought them that day. And nothing was pre-made prior to coming to the market. So it can be done. It's just a little bit tougher sometimes for the food makers. The egg permit, if you have chicken eggs, they will be registered through the state with a state license. If you have duck and quail eggs or any other type of eggs, then you actually have to go through the Board of Health to have them registered, and they have to be inspected by the local Board of Health. I'm not sure what the difference is, but that's what the law says. The law also states that for it to be a true farmers market, you have to have 2 people selling farm market products at the market. Now, Indiana defines a farm as anybody with coffee, tea, honey, wine, hard ciders, beef, chicken, eggs, of course, produce, but the Indiana defines anything that grows on a farm as a farm product. Whether it's in Indiana or not, it is grown on a farm.
Lee, we have a question on the chat. My son is the artist. Does he have to be present at the farmer's market to sell his art, or can anyone run his booth?
That's an interesting question. We do try to have the person whose business is at the market, be at the market, because one, I think it helps because nobody can sell your product better than you, but that doesn't mean you can't be there. A lot of the farmers have grown Be Great. It's a honey vendor. He's just getting ready to open his own store, which is fabulous news for him. But because he has grown so large and he does so many markets, he has hired some people, but it is a local product. And we feel it's important to continue to have, a vendor that has grown with us, and been part of that growth with them, to continue to partner with them. So no, we just don't allow wholesaling, like let's say, or anything beyond, our region. So if they bought the art and then brought it to the market, then that wouldn't be allowed. But if a person is working for that business, that is allowed. It kind of, we just have to be really careful on how the product is brought to the market and then make sure it is a local product. Does that answer the question? Yes, that is our website.
Okay, so for everyone, if you go onto your chat, Joelle has put up the farmers market address, the website address, so you can see it.
Yeah, we actually have several, sections. We have home, obviously that's the front page. About, we really kind of go into more in depth about the market, our motto, our mission, those kind of things. We do have a shopping section. It isn't really taken advantage of as much as we had hoped, but a lot of vendors through the pandemic had actually launched their own sites and didn't really need to see a need for it. And then we have our vendors, in which then you have a vendor directory where you can actually look for a specific vendor. If you're looking for a food or product, then that's what the directory I was telling you about, where if you're looking for eggs, who has eggs, and we do delineate between duck and chicken. Also, what prompted that is a lady had remarked on one of our posts on social media that she couldn't, by the time she got there, everybody was sold out of eggs. Well, then I contacted our egg vendors and everybody's like, I wasn't sold out, and only like one vendor was sold out. So that individual, or even the other vendors, didn't know who to direct her to if they were sold out of a product. So we came up with the product directory, so the vendors and the consumer could find an alternate supplier for that product. Then we have the Saturday vendor placement and then our Wednesday vendor placement. So the consumer again can find who they're looking for, since the park is very large. And then this spring, I actually put up the vendors now hiring, because we had so many vendors that limited what they could do in the participation on Wednesday, because they didn't have enough help to staff a Wednesday market. So we actually put that up, and quite honestly, it wasn't just about staffing on Wednesday, it was just about the production, because our vendors have grown to meet the public's demand, but then they have to have extra hands to get the product to market. So we just started that, and hopefully it's helped. We've had several that have contacted us that said they found help and that to remove their names, but we still have people that are looking for help. And actually, we even put ourselves on that page because we were looking to hire a market assistant. And then we have Vend With Us Today, and that actually goes into learning more about us and how we help our vendors. So we have the application for the indoor market, and then for the balance of the summer season, which is, going to be coming to a close. Then we list the benefits of vending with the Fort Wayne Farmers Market, what's positive about it. We even have testimonials from various businesses. And then the section that says run your business like a business, and vendor rules, those are resources for every requirement and how to help vendors. We had home-based vendors that have never been in business. They don't understand labeling. So we try to provide them as many resources as possible, because I found early on that I was having problems finding this information. So that's why we developed this page. And when I have other markets come to me and ask for help, I tell them, use our application, use our rules and resources. They've all been checked by the attorney. We've checked all the links, so take advantage of all these one-stop shopping resources because we've got it. So, don't try to reinvent the wheel. And then we actually had to add kind of a join a community market etiquette because unfortunately through COVID, it brought out the worst and the best in people. So we had to rethink how we addressed things. And then we also put up local, state, and national organizations that we found out about through our vendors and that we encourage our vendors to know more about that might help them further promote their business and grow their business, within the community. So that's our website. And it's not been an overnight thing. It's been a process to figure out what we want on the website and how we want to present it and what's the most important to us. We've found that having the vendor pages with an email address for the vendors, the community can contact the vendor, without talking to us. They don't have to, there are people that are not on social media and Google is their friend. So if you type in Hoffman or, Fruited Plain, they will pop up because a lot of vendors can't afford their own web pages or websites. So this is built into their fees and it's a service we provide. So they don't have to worry about having their footprint on Google because our page gets so much traction. Found out that for a town 3 times the size of Fort Wayne, who's had a farmer's market in business since the 1800s, we actually are ranked with them on foot traffic on Google because we promote using the website, we promote our vendors, and we work with them and the community to provide all the information as possible. We were talking about applications. So I find that in a year, we'll have 6,000 people look at our application. And from there, only about half will start the application process. And then once they realize that, yes, we do check everybody's, insurance and serve safes and, Board of Health and all these kind of things, about half of those back out because they don't want to go through, that step of being a business. But I also found that since we kind of weed out those people, that those are the people who are less reliable and on market absence. So the more people are serious about being in business and go through our steps, they actually show up every Saturday. They are there to be there in business and to make money and to be profitable. And so it actually helps us find quality vendors because we set our standards so high. And then, Ben and, Ken have both remarked that they liked being at the market because they know the vendor next to them has to hit the same standard that they had to hit. So my biggest fear as a bread vendor is that, let's say I'm selling something and somebody gets sick, but it wasn't my product. So if somebody says I bought bread at the farmer's market and I got sick, anybody who sells at the bread at the farmer's market took a hit. So it's one of those things, it helps us to reduce any problems down the road and to make sure that all the vendors are qualified with their products.
Leigh, when it comes to like food and produce, what should people interested in becoming a vendor know about food safety?
We are the only market in the Northeast region that requires anybody selling prepared foods or sampling foods to require a ServSafe. For that reason, I worked with the National ServSafe organization and was able to negotiate to get a discount for our vendors. Because, even a meat vendor can sample and he doesn't have to have any Board of Health inspections. He doesn't have to have any knowledge on cleanliness. He just has to show up and, cook a square of hamburger and he can serve it. But to do it properly, to do it safely, to do it sanitary, I just stepped up the game and had everybody do a ServSafe. As far as produce, as long as you don't sell it cut or sample it cut, then you're fine. But once you start cutting into produce, that's a whole nother ballgame for the Board of Health to be involved. Did that answer your question, Marilyn?
Do we
Yes,
have any
I-
other questions? Great discussion. The artist that asked if he had to run the booth, or she says thank you. He run the booth most of the time, but with a commitment to other places, maybe not.
Right. Right.
Is there any farmers markets, others around here that people also go to? Just if people are interested out of our area.
You mean as a consumer or as a vendor?
Well, I guess for both. Yeah, I guess the question would be for both of them.
I actually have a list of markets because, even over into Ohio, down towards Indianapolis, in a large radius, because when I find that there's a hole within our market, I typically go and scope out other markets. But my approach has always been, because there's been a huge problem because everybody wants to start a market. So there's what they call market cannibalism. And so like I go and I try to steal their vendors or something like that, which I don't agree with. And I've tried to not do. My whole approach has been, when you're ready to expand, look at the Fort Wayne market, because people hire, they decide they're growing more than what they're selling at their current market. And I don't want to take vendors away from smaller markets, because I think, I grew up in a small town of 200 people. So if somebody took a business out of that small town, that would create a deficit. So my approach has always been, when you're ready to grow and expand, we would like for you to look at Fort Wayne as an alternative versus going into downtown Indianapolis or Toledo or South Bend, those kind of things, to look to the Fort Wayne market. And then I can talk about the history and the record of the Fort Wayne market and the community supporting the Fort Wayne market. When you're looking at all these other markets that pop up, the part of the sustainability, and there's a huge track record, and I'm sure the stats better than I, that for every 10 that start, 7-fold within the first couple of years. So it's hard on the community to start one and stop one and start one and stop one. So it's better for longevity and for that smaller community that you don't steal those vendors. As far as for the, that's I had a vendor said that they need to make more money. So I said, here's a list of all the markets, learn about them and decide which one you want to do. Because we want our farmers to be successful, because if they're not successful, then they're not going to be back. And that means we're going to have a deficit in that product category. So, to make sure that they stay in business is part of our business as well. As far as for the community, when they contact us and say, hey, we're looking for this, because I've been to so many markets throughout the area, I can say, we don't have that, but I know so-and-so does, or, oh, you can't make Saturday, we have a Wednesday market, but if you're not in this area, Solomon Farm has a Wednesday market. New Haven is having Wednesday markets. So, it's just one of those things that when you look around the community, you can help them find what they're looking for.
Yeah, like Leigh said, there's quite a few markets in our area. And just to name a few of them, there's the Ulenny Farmers Market that's on Barr Street, the historic West Main Street Market. The Steuben County has a farmers market. Auburn has a farmers market. Roanoke does as well. There's the South Side Market, which is in Fort Wayne. And then Monroeville is actually looking to start a market. And I don't know if they've started yet or not.
They have, and theirs is on Sunday. And Sundays are really a bold move, because most Sunday markets in this area have not survived. State Street used to have a Sunday market, and it just didn't survive. They couldn't get the vendor buy-in, which is part of the whole market process. It's like the chicken and the egg scenario. We can start the market on Wednesday, but if the community doesn't support it, the vendors aren't going to be back. So, and then if the vendors don't come back, then the community gets frustrated, because they like shopping on Wednesday or whatever the reason. So it kind of, you need both people supporting the idea for it to grow. And but Sunday is a very bold move because Sunday does not have a good track record for this area.
Are there any other farmers markets that maybe some of you vendors sell at?
Yeah.
Speaking for myself, we do not sell at any other farmers markets simply because we are we're consumed with supplying everything we can get just to this farmers market. So we really don't have the need. I know there are a couple that do, but I think probably the majority that I'm aware of only sell at the Fort Wayne Farmers Market.
Yeah, some of them are actually doing the Waialae market because they are in town. There's 2 Saturdays. It's 2 different crowds, and so they're doing both markets on a Saturday, kind of a one hit. Travis with Old Farmhouse, he actually does 3 on Saturday. He does bar, he does us, he does, is it Kosciuszko? Warsaw, yeah, Kosciuszko. So he actually does 3, so he's quite busy Saturday morning, but then he's got the rest of the week off to just do farm things. So
Leigh, we have a question on how many vendors do you allow in the indoor market, and maybe you can say how many you have presently on your outdoor one.
The indoor market is limited more to space. Right now, we have, because of the space requirements that the vendors have communicated to us, we have actually 43 spaces, although we have technically close to 50 tables, because we have so many that have grown into 2 spots. And, Ken and Ben are a good representation of that. Berry Hill Farm, Custom Quality, Golden Green Soap, Grant Creek Farm. There's several that are growing into 2 tables, 2 booths. And so that actually limits how many vendors, obviously, that we can have versus how many tables and spaces we have. The outdoor market, because we grew to an outdoor location and we weren't restricted by traffic or streets or whatever like that, we've actually doubled in size, and our vendors in themselves have doubled. So technically, although we have almost 80 vendors at this point, we actually they're consuming enough to be 160 vendors because so many of them have grown so exponentially, which is great. I mean, we had one farmer that went from a 10-foot spot to needing 40 feet because he developed a whole new business out of the farmers market. So it's one of those things that, when you actually look at numbers, I mean, it can be deceiving because our vendor numbers have doubled, but our space has quadrupled compared to the space requirements in previous years.
All right, well, maybe we'll just move on, and we'll always take questions for Leigh anytime. So our next person we have on is Ken Zimmerman from Adams County. He lives just a little bit south of me, and we'll let him talk as a vendor and why he sells there and what made him successful.
Well, thank you, Michael. Brief history, started in the seed industry, forage and turf back in 1980. I worked for a large seed corporation that had a vegetable seed division, and I got kind of pulled into that. And actually 35, 6, 7 years ago, started growing fresh produce wholesale, and with the change of status, had to give that up. Fast forward, we currently run 4 separate enterprises that are interrelated, but could be technically standalones. We were looking for an outlet for some of the products that we had, because one of the enterprises that we run generated, we clean food grade grain for the organic food industry. We generated a lot of clean out, so we bought some pigs, and we raised them with the grain. And we were looking for a more steady outlet for it. Found the farmers market, and we've just grown from there. We have since added beef, eggs, chicken, now lamb, and we have ventured back into produce. And this will be our second year with an expanding produce line. So, one of the things that Leigh was talking about, um, the vendor community, um, whether it's a small market or a large market, I would say go visit the market, because you're going to see what the typical clientele is like, what they are looking for. I don't typically go to smaller community markets. I have been recruited much of the time to go to smaller ones. I don't, because A, I don't have the time, B, I don't have the product, and C, you're probably not going to get the prices that you are at a larger community like Fort Wayne and Indianapolis, Dayton, someplace like that. The thing that you're going to see though is how the vendors get along with each other. And if you have a community where the vendors are constantly sniping with each other, it can be a toxic situation. So you really don't want to do that. And it's just a good idea to visit and take a look around, ask a lot of questions of the people that are there. And as far as like the rules, when we had the COVID restrictions on, we had some vendors that complained a lot. Nobody liked the rules, but if we wanted to survive, we had to just do what we needed to do to survive and remain open. And we had to maintain that unit cohesion, and we lost some vendors in that process. But what remained, we have a very cohesive unit now, and it's great. Joel asked me to talk a little bit about what we have done that has been successful. Probably the main thing that I would say, when I visited back in 2012, the farmers market, the first year it started, the thing I noticed the most was that everybody, farmers kind of nondescript, we always wear the same baseball cap, plaid shirt type thing. And our names are very similar, farm, wood, something or other. And I'm an old marketing guy from the corporate world. And so I'm thinking we need to do something to make ourselves distinctive from everybody else. So from day one, when we started, I'm a former rodeo cowboy. And so I wore my cowboy hat, and we did everything, our signs, our bags, our tablecloths, in pink, hot pink, because I figure what is the most incongruous color you can think of at a farmer's market? Got to be hot pink. So we have done that. Being a former rodeo cowboy, I am just not challenged by pink. And nobody forgets an old guy in a cowboy hat and a pink apron. And that is probably one of the best things that I have done, because it does not hurt to have some measure of theater, because you're there, trying to command the attention of the public. And if you don't command something unusual, they're not going to look at you. You just something else. The product alone is great, but sure doesn't hurt to have a little something else to stand out. And that's probably one of the better things we started out with right off the bat, and we continue to this day. We started out with pork. We added beef. We had people like, do you have chickens? Do you have eggs? Like, yeah, we have eggs. I hate chickens. And but we had enough customer demand that we started to raise eggs. And well, we started to bring eggs because they were also a byproduct of our chickens running around cleaning up spilled grain from trucks coming and going. And they keep the insects down on our grain cleaning operation since it's certified organic. We then had people wanting chicken meat, so we started raising chickens for meat, and then we eventually started into lamb. And that is one of those things where it took a long time for that. It took almost 2 years for the lamb to really catch on. And once it finally did, because you're at the point of like, is this worth still doing this or not? And then all of a sudden, bam, everybody wants lamb. And it's like, yes, finally. But another thing about farmers market, do not view it as a get rich quick scheme. This is a long term commitment. And you really starting, if you're starting now, you're having to break in to other people's customers, which you're not going to do very easily. And you will appreciate that once you become an established vendor, because you don't want people picking off your customers for whatever reason. Or if they do that, that's kind of a failure on your part. But new people, you've got a shot with. Old people that once you establish a customer base, unless somebody else is out of product, or for whatever reason they've had a bad experience with this other vendor, they're probably not going to buy their product. They might buy one or two products from you, but they'll buy a different product from another vendor that they've established with. One of the other things that we did was during COVID, immediately after the restrictions hit, we had a couple of the vendors that decided to go online and say, okay, if you can't come to the market, text us, email us, we'll make sure we get you, we'll supply you with product, we'll make arrangements to get it to you. I didn't do that. And because of that, some of the other vendors ran out of product and they couldn't get butcher dates at that point, and they were out of product for some period of time. And we actually picked up customers because we didn't do that, and we still maintained product for our current customers, and picked up a few customers, or at least a time period that we had those customers, and access them. So in the future, even though they may have returned to those other vendors once they had product, we still had a good relationship with them. Things that I have done wrong. I thought about that a lot overnight, and I have, being in the seed industry, I worked a lot of trade shows for decades. And this is kind of like working a trade show booth. And that's why I say you got to have some measure of theater to attract attention to yourself, whatever it may be. You got to have some kind of hook. It helps. And I really can't say that there has anything that we have done wrong. We've done a few things that didn't work, but I can't say that we have done anything wrong. And I attribute that to the longevity of my background in trade shows, because we learned a lot back then. So one thing I can tell you is make sure it takes a very particular type of personality. If you're withdrawn, if you're a recluse, don't even bother. You have got to be an outgoing, sell your product, you sell yourself first, your product follows. And that is probably one of the keys to being reasonably successful at this. And as far as our future, we have to look at it. We're expanding into produce. Whether we continue that remains to be seen long term, just because of the generational shift. But my background is in seeds, and I love growing produce. And in the meantime, as long as I can, we're going to be doing that. Whether that continues, we'll see. I Yeah, it's probably about it for right now. But if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer those. I probably better stop while I'm ahead.
Hey, again, we have a comment on the chat room that you're the best. I'll never forget those ham hocks during COVID. They just made my mess of greens so much better.
Well, we have done a lot of different things, and flexibility is the key, because we have had customers over the years, and they'll ask, can you do this? Can you do that? And it's like, okay, give me specifics, and the next time we take an animal in, we'll see if we can get that done for you. And some of those things have actually turned into regular stock items for us now. Uh, Particularly one is the ground pork, because we had customers that had health issues, and surprisingly, it was the pepper in the salt and pepper sausage that they were allergic to. And so we just started doing ground pork. We had a customer that wanted what they call dino ribs, and they gave us a specification, and we had these giant ribs cut out of one of the cows. And these things were so big, we couldn't even get them to close in one of the coolers, and we had to buy an extra large cooler just to transport them in. They ended up, the pair was so big, I mean, we're talking 26, 28-pound rack of ribs, two of them. And the customer couldn't get them into his smoker, and decided to ask us if we would not, make him take the other half, which we didn't force him to take the other half. But when we were down at Bar Street years ago, if it ever got a little slow, we would just pull out that rack of ribs and throw it on the table. And instantly you had a crowd. Guys would be dragging their wives or girlfriends, and they'd be drooling, and they'd be coming over there. It was a great showstopper. And that's what I say. Sometimes you have to have some kind of a gimmick. But yeah, that was a great little gimmick. And we ended up eventually selling that thing. But I mean, those things were like 150, 60 bucks a pop. And we really didn't have any trouble selling them. But, we actually kept the second one just for that reason. And so anything you can do like that to create attention is really a good thing.
Hey, Ken, I'm a commercial grain farmer, so I'm really at the mercy of Chicago Board of Trade for our prices. Without getting specifics or personal, how do you set prices to make a fair profit for yourself? How is that done?
First of all, like I said, we run 4 separate enterprises here that are interrelated. We operate them as standalones, and if one, like the small farming operation that we do, because we've outgrown the supply of grain from the grain cleaning operation to feed the livestock, so we actually have to grow some to supplement that. We have to charge that out at what market price will be in order to make a profit on that enterprise, and then charge the other enterprise that price, and then that becomes the foundation to establish a cost. Generally, we will visit like Fresh Market or some of the other whole natural grocery stores and see what their products are priced at, and then we'll try and stay in that area. Sometimes with the lamb, we have had such a response for lamb chops that when we ran out and we had everything else, we're probably going to lower the price on the ground lamb and the boneless leg of lamb roast, but we are going to jack the snot out of the price of lamb chops. And having seen other people do that, I don't think it will slow the sales down a bit, but that's how we will, you have to look at a holistic approach to it. And so that's kind of how we establish the prices as to what we do. You don't want to undercut the other vendors, so you kind of notice what they sell things for, and you try and remain in the same area. And generally, they're not giving it away, although some markets you will have that. Where you, in a smaller market, we have the amateurs that are just bringing produce from their backyard garden, and they have no idea what it's worth, and they just about give it away. That can be a problem. So we try not to do that. We try to support prices, and remember that we all have to make a living at this, because this is what we do for a business. It's not a hobby. And if you're doing this for a hobby, don't screw up the people that are doing this for a business.
Very nice. We can, we'll keep Ken on, I hope, for questions later, if anybody wants to go on with him.
Hey, Mike, I'd actually like to kind of chime in on that. There's a market south of us that if Ken's beef is more than 50 cents higher than another beef vendor, the market actually tries to regulate prices. And there's been a huge discussion about price fixing, legality, those type of things, which I'm not an expert on, I can't get into. But that's when Ken says, go visit the market. Are some hidden things for people to be aware of before they join a market. That's actually one of the reasons why we gained a vendor, because she was very frustrated because of the whole price fixing scenario. So if, Ben was selling his organic chicken the same as, Ken's chicken, they actually both lose in that scenario. But I'm only aware of the one market that does it in this area.
I would tend to agree with that. The only thing I'm saying is you don't want to be the low guy on the totem pole just to get the market because you're new, and that's the temptation with a lot of new vendors. They feel like they have to give their product away. So you don't want to get into that price war type thing, because nobody benefits from that. We try to market on the quality of the product and sell on the upscale, not the downscale price.
That's very true. And I've worked with a lot of new bakers, because they take the cost of ingredients, but they don't calculate their time in making it, the time in shopping for the ingredients, time in selling the product at the market, the cost of the market, insurance, all those things. They just, to them, they doubled their money kind of thing. And we actually, when I first started vending in Fort Wayne, there was a girl who made pies. And, when I made a pie and she made a pie, they actually were very similar. But when I made my 5-pound apple pie, I was selling it, back in 2011 for $18. And she was selling her 5-pound apple pie for $7. And she's like, I'm so happy. I sell out every market, blah, blah, blah. And I said, you're not paying yourself, and you're going to burn out because you're going to find out that this really doesn't cover the cost of barely the cost of your ingredients, let alone. And she was setting a fair price to her, but she only lasted 1 year. And she's like, I was at the end of the year, she's like, I don't think I was selling them enough. I'm like, no, you weren't. You didn't value your product high enough for your labor, your ingredients, and those kind of things, because she was buying whatever produce she could to make the pie. Whatever was on sale, that's what she would make. So she thought she was making money, when in all essence, she was actually hurting herself, and she never vended again. And actually, if you ask her, she's not made a pie since. So, she burnt herself out. And that's one of the things that we talk to new vendors about, is making sure they value their time and not just the cost of the ingredients, so you can run a business with a profit. Profit is not a 4-letter word, or a dirty word or anything like that, because without profit, I couldn't set money aside to buy new equipment or repair the old equipment or anything like that. So profit is not a bad thing. And Ken and Ben are the vendors that I'm aware of, but they both have grown because they allow a profit, and they're not ashamed to allow a profit for that growth. Sorry, I kind of went off on that tangent.
No, very good. That was the gist of why I asked that question. So let's move on, and we'll have time later to discuss more things. Our next vendor is Marilyn Myers. I hope I'm saying that name right for you. And she can tell us about her experiences.
Okay, I'm Marilyn Myers. I'm one of the two people on here that represent Tree Frog Farm. The other is my daughter, Tina Myers. She's just listening in. As far as going down some of the things, I kind of would be reiterating a little bit of what Ken said. You do have to be a bit outgoing. You can talk to your customers, joke with them a bit, things like that. Things that we have found have helped a bit. We're down at the Bar Street Market, and there are a lot of people bring dogs. So we're pre-COVID, we put out water dishes for the dogs. That just sort of helped warm things up. Another thing to stress is, again, a lot of the farmers market produce was picked very close to the market time frame. And a lot of people don't realize it. They're used to shopping at like Kroger's and that. So, getting across to them that it is very fresh. Like, some things I would say, the squash blossoms I picked this morning to them. Things that have also worked for us is sometimes we have the unusuals. We have the blue potatoes, the red potatoes, things like that you just don't see that much of. And another little trick that we kind of learned the hard way, we had great looking green beans, and we had them more or less in bulk. And we would weigh out, we had a price per pound, we would weigh out, however many pounds they wanted. But what we found is actually a bit of what you could call grab and go worked very well, which was pre-weighed in the bag, ready to go at like 1 pound increments, things like that. Which you think farmers market, you show all the produce, it's out there, people can see. And the idea of pre-bagging took a little time, but it works. And because some people are just going to go get this, this, and this, and it is a very quick thing. Another thing that does help, and we've just started doing it in the last year or so, is wearing shirts with the farm name on. People see that, they know they're at the right spot then for whatever they're looking for. So that is a smaller promotional thing to help us out. And as my daughter just messaged, another thing that seems to be helping us is getting away from plastics. A lot of our customers are ecologically conscious, so we're getting compostable containers, just something a little bit to set you apart and let them know. We have the compostable clear plastic, what would be like salad bowls that we're selling the lettuce in rather than a bag. So that's some of the things that have worked for us. Some of the things that haven't worked, on and off, for whatever reason, selling eggs. Over the years, a lot of the rules have changed over the years, and I got caught in some of the rule changes. So eggs are a little bit of a commitment that I'm not quite ready to do again. Selling some of the larger, heavier things like watermelons. Yes, people want them, but nobody wants to haul them around the market. and just kind of little things allowing people, if they do want to get something that's larger or heavier, saying, yes, you can purchase it. We'll set it back. We'll put your name on it with your phone number so that you can come get it when you're ready to leave. And then hand them a business card so they know which booth. Because both markets have gotten pretty large, and I think people sometimes just get a little lost. The Bar Street market is where I'm at. There's something well over 100 vendors. So just being aware of that. And like I say, the little business card that you hand out does wonders. That's most of what I have really for that, if there's anybody has questions for me.
Marilyn, do you sell anywhere besides the farmer's market?
We do a kind of a custom delivery service, what some people would call a CSA, but we have a limited group. We're just starting back into that this year. I did that 20 or 30 years ago and had to get out of it for other reasons. It seems to be working this year for us, but we're doing it on a limited basis just to try it out, where we've let people do the best way I can describe it is there's a list of produce available. They give us their preferences. We have a cash amount and they pay online. So that's what kind of limits what they get. My daughters mainly manage it. And if Tina, if you want to unmute and talk, I'm pretty good at saying, you're better at explaining that than me.
Yeah, absolutely. So what we're calling our like weekly CSA or veggie delivery was started by accident this year. A friend of mine said like she'd love our produce and like, could we drop it off? And so what we started with was just one person talking with what their budget was, what would they would like to see, and working more with like those allergens. Because we, more than just produce, we have jams and jellies, and we'll occasionally have a gluten-free baked good as well. By the time it spread, kind of talking with other regular people that purchased our produce, I started creating an online Google form that lists out their name, contact information that they would need. And we work with ours being fully customizable and delivered. And delivery worked for us on Fridays because I live in Fort Wayne. The farm is north of Fort Wayne. So I was already coming down through Huntertown, north side of Fort Wayne, all the way down into the south side of Fort Wayne. So delivery for us wasn't that much of a step up, but with it being newly launched this year, we did want to have a cap on it so we could have the proper amounts of produce prepared and allow a better satisfaction. And even from our current subscribers or customers, it's been a great response. They love the fact that it is delivered. We are using a cooler bag, so everything is packed in. It's going to be enclosed. And for people that may have a specialized diet, for someone that we have one that does not consume nightshades. So for her, having the option to say that she does not want peppers, tomatoes, eggplants, and not having to worry about other subscription boxes, such as say like Hello Fresh or meal services that would give her those, we allow them to have more control in what they have and have more consistency as well, for it being the top pick. So when things get picked, it is fresh picked on Friday morning, it is cleaned up and delivered by Friday afternoon. And they are allowed more or less what they want. So there is a list where they go through and click that they want eggplants, green beans, cauliflower, but they don't want broccoli. And we'll work with their offerings then to provide such items on a weekly basis, if that is making sense. Mom?
Okay. That's a pretty good description of that. It does seem to be working. It's still on a trial basis. Things that didn't work was trying to combine a home plant sale with growing the plants and doing all that, but that's other than the farmer's market. Another thing for people setting up in the market, we've found that kind of simplifying our setup color-wise and allowing the produce to provide the color works very well. We were doing all kinds of crappy baskets and things like that, and it took up a lot of space, and people didn't see those bright green zucchinis because they were in a purple whatever. So that's just I guess a basic marketing thing. And that's pretty much all I have right now. So if anybody has any more.
Marilyn, what is your produce? What are you selling, I guess is my question. How much are you?
I am selling produce that is grown without any chemicals. We haven't had chemicals on the farm since the late 80s. In fact, I worked with Ken back in the early 90s growing soybeans, chemical free. So that's primarily what I'm selling is produce, and we have some jams and baked goods that we fill in with, you know, when the produce is lagging for whatever reason. This year has been extremely challenging for us because we've had other things going on. So the baked goods and the jams have been a fill-in, and they're doing quite well. Like I say, letting people know when you're doing produce, letting people know, or when you're doing the meats, letting people know your growing practices. A lot of people at the farmers markets are concerned about that. So.
Marilyn, the question on the chat, where did your customer base for the online delivery side of the business come from?
I'll take over answering this question since it kind of started through me. It worked from just a first social point of connection, and she's a local business owner with a larger online following. So it worked mainly through word of mouth. Her telling other people, or us telling our customer who was already looking into an option of having a vegetable delivery service through more of one of those more national change like Misfits, where it's the unusual, slightly damaged, or just non-typical consumer produce. But we did add to our online form that people fill out, like, how did you find out about us? One of the more unusual answers to that was we had someone find out about us through a online like Fort Wayne Vegans group, which is great to hear. And other people listed like online friends and such. So primarily through word of mouth, because this is just our starting year. We didn't actively advertise that we would be starting this system, an option.
Now I know other farms have done similar things, and they've had their delivery and pickup points be the farmers markets. We're not doing that as of yet. Like I say, it's just a side thing that happened just organically, I would say, but it does seem to be working. I have been associated with farmers markets in the past that did do what was considered community supported agriculture, and they ran that through the market, that people joined the group and they were able to go around the market and get X dollar amount of produce each week because they were part of that group. And the farmers market I was at the time was the one up in Goshen, and that actually worked very well because they had a characteristic basket, and you knew when you got that you would record what they got, and you could turn it in as a vendor at the end of the market. And I'm trying to remember how they paid back, but that I think was on a weekly basis. So that's another idea for the markets out there and the market organizers. So,
All right. Well, thank you, Marilyn and Tina. I hope you can stick around. We'll hopefully have some questions at the end.
okay.
Let's move on now to Ben Huffman from Huffman Organics, and let him tell us about his experience.
Good. Can everybody hear me today?
Yes, loud and clear. Thank you.
All right. I had to move out. I had to move out to the truck. The house internet was a little slow this morning. So my name is Ben Hoffman. I'm the owner of Hoffman Organics. Hoffman Organics started, I believe, about 6.5 years ago. And how it all started was right after high school, I went directly to college and didn't like what I was doing. So switched that up. We moved to Florida, became an airline pilot. After about 5 or 6 years of doing that, maybe 7 years, I said, this isn't for me, flying airplanes. So I moved back to Indiana and became a contractor, which is my now day job. And I bought a piece of property in Huntertown. From that, I got a tax bill one year, the very 2 months after I bought the property. And I opened the tax bill up, and honestly, it scared me. And I said, what am I going to do? Like, how am I going to be able to pay this? I don't even make this much money a year. So I called the assessor's office, called everybody else, anybody I knew, Tim Bamba, now good friends. And I said, what do I need to do? And they said, Ben, you need to farm it. And I said, okay, what should I farm? And they said, we don't care what you farm. You just have to farm it to reduce your taxes. And I said, okay. So my brother and I, we were initially partners in the beginning. We started Hoffman Certified Organics. The problem is I had never raised a single animal my entire life. Didn't know anything about pretty much anything. Didn't have any equipment, didn't have any knowledge on planting or raising. So we went back and forth a little bit, and I said, well, what about cows? Like, I think cows would be pretty simple. And he said, well, let's say you get 4 cows and you lose one. You're going to notice that. And he said, how about we do chickens? And I said, chickens. Let's do chickens. So at this point in time, we were not certified organic. We just ordered from Meyer Hatchery 400 chickens, raised them up to about as best we could in brooders and lights and water systems. That didn't work. Once they got big enough, we put them outside, and that the business began. What you don't do is take 400 chickens with no fence and no knowledge about predators, aerial or ground, let them outside and expect a reasonable outcome. There will not be. So out of 400 birds, we ended up with, I think it was 162 that we actually took to the processor. The profit margin was a little off on that, but we advertised just I believe through Facebook, word of mouth, and sold 162 birds, honestly, in like 2 weeks. But not coming from a farming background or a sales background, I didn't understand it. I said, who in their right mind, not people who don't know me, who in their right mind would buy chicken from somebody, like chickens from the grocery store? And I didn't get it. So from there, my brother said, there's this new wave. It's in California. It's going to be the hottest thing. It's called certified organic. And I said, what is it? And he said, it's the wave of the future. And I said, what do we have to do? And he said, well, we fill out all this paperwork and we submit it. And then we get certified organic, we get approved. And it honestly took probably another year to fill out this application because it said, what do you have to feed a chicken? What do you have, all the inputs? What do you have to feed a cow? What do you? And I said, I have no idea. You just you go to the store and you buy some feed. You go. The issue 7 years ago was finding all of the places you need or I needed to make it all come together. The step number one is getting your farm certified organic, getting your animal certified organic. If they come from another farm, they can never be certified organic. There's some fine lines there. Where do you get organic feed? Where do you have the birds or the livestock processed in an organic facility? So it was just by sheer happenstance that this old farm in Colfax, Indiana, was certified organic at a federal level. The year prior to that, there's a grain mill up in Wookensville called Wolf Co-op. The conventional grain mill had burned to the ground, and so Honeyville purchased it and made it their organic hub, because LaGrange County is the largest organic milk production area, location, region in the entire United States. So that's how kind of everything came together, finding the little pieces. But I was still very skeptical. I'd never been to a farmer's market, and I kept asking my brother. I said, so we're going to go to this farmer's market. Let's say it's 100 degrees outside on a Saturday, and we're going to have coolers with frozen chicken, mind you, in these coolers, and people are going to buy this. And he said, I think they will. And I said, I think you're crazy. But we gave it a go anyway. So first round of birds, and honestly, when you get to pasture chicken operations, you can't just raise any old chicken, especially when it comes to the meat bird side of things. So the first year being certified organic, we went through probably, I believe it was almost 20 different varieties in small increments to see which genetics, which breed of chickens would perform the best in the brooder with the feed ration, out on pasture with the temperature fluctuations, anything that can come into effect. And we found my staple bird now is the white mountain broiler from the Eagle's Nest. It pastures tremendously. They are very active. The quality, the size, everything of the bird is what I'm looking for. I don't raise, I'm not in the 7 to 8 pound chickens. Mine are 4.5, 5, maybe 5.2 pounds, something like that, dressed. So that's fine for me. So we first started off, the very first farmer's market my wife Natalie had signed us up for was a YLNI farmer's market. So of course we go out, we buy the tents, we buy the coolers, we get everything set up, get a point of sale system, cash box. And I was pretty scared. Like, I said, this is just going to be a disaster. And it was a beautiful Saturday. First Saturday, go set up, learn the ropes. We're the new. And I said, the new people coming in with just chicken, just chicken in a cooler. Didn't really know about signage and other things. I said, let's just give it a shot. And so we set up, 9 o'clock, boom. Had a sale at like 9:25. Had another sale. And I was trying to understand. I said, and so as my brother was telling people about the farm and how it all came about, I from being an airline pilot, sitting in airports, you become a very good people watcher. So I sit back and I just watch people. And you can tell, customers who are interested, customers who stay their distance, just reading the signage, learning about your product, customers who approach. So that was my very first introduction to the farmer's market. So the YLNI market we started off with, we were there for a very short stint. my wife said, Ben, she's like, I think you should switch over to the Fort Wayne Farmers Market. I think that's a better venue. That's a better avenue for longevity, for growth, the whole 9 yards. And I said, okay, let's do that. So that's when I applied with Leigh at the Fort Wayne Farmers Market to become a vendor. So my brother and I manned the first, I believe, 1.5 to 2 years booth at the Fort Wayne Farmers Market. And then I decided to bring that question back about other farmers markets around the area. So I tried New Haven. I tried Columbia City, and I really wanted Columbia City to work. Again, I was the new guy. They put me at spot number 1, where they always send the new vendor. And every Saturday, my brother would go to the Fort Wayne Farmers Market. I would go to Columbia City, and I wanted it to work. I wanted it as bad as it could to work. The foot traffic was great up there. The customer base was phenomenal, but it's expensive. I mean, organic pasture-raised chicken, my costs. And when you're in the infancy, you don't get really price breaks from the product. You don't get lot price breaks when you buy feed by the bag instead of by the ton. So as a small operator working with limited numbers of chickens, you're always at this. I was always paying a premium price for my product on the expense side, which then put it back on the customer side, and it was more, I believe, the demographic that would walk up and they'd say, $10 a pound for chicken breasts. I guess it's a relationship base where not everybody knows what quality and pride and all it takes to have that organic seal on any given product. It's a lot of work and a lot of cost. So as I've refined the system, you buy your feed in bulk. You watch the commodities a little bit more. You buy, but again, feed is only good for X amount of days. And then King & Sons, which is a federal plant of a poultry processing plant in Ohio, became available. And that was a long road getting those guys to work with me and getting away from this old farm, so I could get fixed pricing. And one of my biggest problems in the beginning was every time I would take a lot of birds to this old farm, it was never a dead set price. So they would cut up the bird, they would package the bird, and you could never get a cost base exact price per bird every single time, because for some reason it always fluctuated, and I never understood that. So when I switched to King & Sons in Ohio, it was a much smoother format. I could get a cost base for every single bird before I even had any birds processed. So which made my side at the market a little bit easier, because I could relate it more to my customers, because I could explain to them, now that in the beginning it was a crapshoot. You never knew, but I've never fluctuated my prices ever since day number 1. So the Columbia City Farmers Market was good, but my wife kept telling me, Ben, she said, you can't, it's not worth your time to go up there. You got to be down at Fort Wayne. And I wanted to believe in Columbia City as hard as I could. So at the end of the day, I had to not renew my space up there, come back to the Fort Wayne Farmers Market. And that's what I call home now. It's nice being there. The customers are great. And from those, I've got multiple restaurant contracts now. And I just, as of this week, my first delivery to the Copper Spoon. My phone go up. Can you still hear me?
Yeah, you just come back on. You were gone there for the
Okay,
copper something.
Perfect. My phone. Okay, so I just picked up the Copper Spoon, which is a restaurant in downtown Fort Wayne. So Aaron Butts actually approached me at the Fort Wayne Farmers Market 3 weeks ago with his wife and his 2 kids, and he said, Ben, how do you raise your chickens? And I said, what do you mean? He said, how do you raise them? And to me, it's very simple, but it's from the unknown to the known for a lot of people. So I give them the normal, I get my birds from the eagle's nest. I pick them up at 3 hours old or 4 hours old, and I bring them home to my brooder. And then, with 3 weeks, I transition them outside, and they're on organic feed from Wookettville. They're taken to King & Sons, which has an organic certification. So the entire chain from A to Z is never broken. But without the Fort Wayne Farmers Market, I don't think I would have the restaurant contracts that I have. Even Marcus at DeQuee's met me there. Nikki Nolot, who owns Tolan, met me there. So it's everybody at the farmer's market knows somebody else who knows somebody else who knows somebody else. So as long as you believe in your product, it's a good quality product. You can explain your product to everybody, ins and outs. And when they come off the wall, I have this customer, and I call her the Meyer lady. And she said, first time I ever met her, came up to my booth, and she says, "Do you raise your own chickens?" And I said, "Yeah." "Why?" And she says, "Because I was buying from a vendor, and then I saw her at Meyer, and she had a whole cart full of chicken." And I said, "What are you doing with the chicken?" And she's like, "I'm taking it home and rebagging it and putting my label on." So that's my thing. She always calls me, and she's like, "It's the Meyer lady." And I said, "I've got your chicken ready." So it's just off the cuff stuff that's what makes it fun. So when Aaron Butts came down and said, "How do you raise your chicken?" And to me, it's very simple, but I explain the entire process to anybody who asks, just the same way when they say, "Well, why is your Mangalitsa pork so expensive?" And I said, "Let me tell you about Mangalitsa. You have about 2 hours." And I don't really take 2 hours. I give them like a 10-minute thing. So, but the customer base at Fort Wayne Farmers Market is phenomenal. But it's the knowing, each person you meet, whether you make an impact on them, you don't overwhelm them. You very cautiously watch, like I said, people watch. Never overwhelm. When they have questions, you answer the questions as best you can to try to make that initial impression with them. And from there, the relationship will be built one way or another. It's a long process, but it's a fun process, and that's why I do it. But my day job still takes 90% of my time. Chicken farm, maybe 80%. So chicken farm is about 20%. So this season, I'm hoping to do. I got on the docket 8,000 birds. So I'm on run number 4,000 right now. But it's with the pandemic, after the pandemic, pre-pandemic, it's, you're from the hatchery to the processing dates, everything's got to be organized like a symphony. Because it's deadlines and timetables, and everybody's still, the processors are still, extremely busy on the chicken side. The hatcheries are busy. They've got people picking up more birds than you could imagine. So there's always bumps in the road. So you got to start, December with all your calendar days and all your timetables with, I'm getting birds here. And then you just hope that it won't rain for 3 weeks straight, which it did. That was a joke. The rain we needed the rain, but it was terrible when you're pasturing birds. So, but no, the Fort Wayne Farmers Market is a great place. And I couldn't imagine from years ago saying, who would buy that out of a cooler? Like, you've got to be crazy. Not ever going to a farmer's market, to being at a farmer's market every Saturday, seeing the customers, knowing their names, their families, what their kids do, how the sports went, and growing relationships like that. But it's about good quality product and friendships, and that's what makes it just a great farmer's market.
Thank you, Ben. Anybody have comments, questions for Ben right now?
Well, I'd like to thank Ben, for being one of our vendors, but I also think it's important to highlight the fact of his growth. So he went from chicken to now he has pork. He's building a greenhouse to do organic produce, which he's on schedule for in another year to have the organic produce.
Yes.
So on the application, when we're talking about growth, this is part of it. And then also you are doing charcuterie now, which is set to launch this October at the indoor market.
Yes, so charcuterie is the aging of pork without the use of nitrates and nitrites and smoking. So it's like they do in Spain and many other countries where you take the natural product, you salt cure it, and you let it hang for, it can be anywhere from a month and a half, 2 months for some of the smaller pepperoni salamis, to up to 2 years for a prosciutto. So I actually have my own USDA processing plant up in Churubusco, right next to Integrity Meats. That is, and we're just waiting on our plant number, which should be here. I think they said August 7th is our plant number, so we can actually get up and running. And we'll be so due to my farm's constraints, I will be raising probably 10% to 15% of the pork for specialty runs. This is what the mangalites of the pigs that I raised were. That's what they're mainly used for. But we will be using Woods Farms as well, and other local farms for more pork supply, just because my farm is not designed to house 500, or I'm a smaller operation, so we're utilizing the local sources to build our products as well.
Very interesting. Hey, Ben, how about if we move on now, and we'll give you a chance and people to give you questions later.
Okay.
Chris Knipstein is with us, and probably the least understood or known mushroom farming business, and how he's doing it, and what the farmer market means to him.
Yeah. Can you hear me?
Yeah, it looks real good.
Had some issues with the computer this morning, so yeah. So Windrose Urban Farm, we are a mushroom farm right downtown Fort Wayne. So if you know where the downtown post office is, we're right behind them at Breckenridge and Lafayette. We're actually a nonprofit farm, so our mission is to employ people with employment barriers. So that's our main goal. We do that through growing mushrooms. Now we've also expanded out back behind the building. We bought a couple lots where we're growing produce. And this spring, we've also acquired Young Urban Homesteaders, which is a fermenting business. So now most of the stuff that we're growing out back is going to our own value-added products. So we do kimchi, sauerkraut, liquid peppers, just kind of like Tabasco sauce, stuff like that. We've been growing mushrooms for about 4 years now. Took quite a while to find the right strains, because they're pretty picky about how they grow and stuff. So about half of our business is market, and the other half is restaurants and retail locations. So we sell at most of the restaurants downtown use us that aren't like a chain or whatever. And then we've got the Fresh Food Hub up in Auburn where you can find our stuff. We're starting to do the Junk Ditch CSA, the Three Rivers Food Co-op, and the Health Food Shop. And then we're also talking to a couple more locations here downtown. Blessing Moon Herbs pretty soon, and possibly the Botanical Conservatory is going to sell some of our stuff over there as well. Gosh, it's pretty hard to come up with something that everybody else hasn't said already. Yeah, they hit all the main points. So we're doing both farmers markets on Saturday. We do McCulloch Park with Fort Wayne Farmers Market, and we're doing the Weil and I on Bar Street. We would maybe do a couple more if we had more people, but it's kind of hard to find employees to do just a Saturday. So we don't need a lot of people at the farm to do everything we do. We're getting to the point where we can grow a lot and expand more. It's hard to find somebody that just wants to work on a Saturday morning, and that's pretty much it. So yeah, some of the things people mentioned, like paper over plastic, that was a big thing for us. Like a lot of people that came to the market wanted us to use paper, so we changed over to that. When we delivered to the restaurants, we do everything in recycled tubs. We're not recycled, but plastic tubs we bring back, we wash them, we reuse them. So we're not using anything that way. Yeah. everybody's kind of hit everything. We kind of got into mushrooms because it was something nobody else was doing. So like as a nonprofit, people that were doing things for a living didn't want to jump in and like just do it and not have to worry about whether we were really turning a profit so much and hurt people that were doing it for a living. So mushrooms was something nobody else was doing. I kind of knew how to grow mushrooms when we started. So done some classes with Fruit Growers Club here in Fort Wayne on how to grow mushrooms for years before we started, and grew up farming, mostly just grain, and then went through the extension office's master gardener class, the urban ag class, went down to the farmers market classes down at the state small farm conference. So yeah, we just kind of made the business to sell at the market. That was our main thing. And then restaurants, we just went around and started knocking door to door. We would drop off some product as a sample, business card, we'd call ahead, let them know we were coming, that we wanted to drop some stuff off, and we just kind of grew from there. So we started in little 10-foot by 10-foot tents, lots of trials and errors, lots of failures, trying to get mushrooms to grow. It's pretty easy to grow mushrooms overall. It's pretty hard to grow mushrooms on a schedule that you're going to have mushrooms come Tuesday for restaurant deliveries or for Saturday for the market. The timing, that's the hard part of making them grow when you want them to grow. So now we grow in about a 20-foot by 40-foot greenhouse inside the warehouse here, just on the other side of the computer. And then, yeah, not sure what else that everybody else hasn't covered, unfortunately. If anybody's got questions, that's one of our biggest things at the market. Like, everybody wants to know about mushrooms, how they grow. I guess I could go over our process, how we do it. So we grow on sawdust mainly, and mushrooms pretty much compost that sawdust. Like when mushrooms are done, they fruit a couple times on the blocks. Then we grind it up through a chipper shredder, like leaf shredder. And then we got some bins behind the building that we store it in until we have room in the garden where we can then spread it for soil amendment. So the mushrooms have really broken that sawdust down to, I just call it like a duff. It's nothing anymore. So yeah, once we put that out back, we use that to amend the soil because city lot soil wasn't that great. We had to bring in some soil. So the more mushrooms we can grow, the more we can amend that soil and make it better. And then we're growing stuff back out there that was going to be for the market, but now it's all going basically to our fermentation stuff. I think you're muted.
So are you selling anywhere else? Or are you on Facebook, any of the media places?
Not really. We're not doing it online. We will be selling here at the farm probably eventually. We got a small room out front. We're going to turn it into a retail spot. Being downtown, we got a lot of people that just stop in. Sometimes we have stuff for them, sometimes we don't. So we wanted to kind of stabilize that a little bit more. Something I should mention, so all of our value added stuff, we do that at the Community Harvest Food Bank's north location. So they've got a rental kitchen. That's where we store pretty much everything. If it wasn't for them, we couldn't do like most of what we do. We don't have like a big walk-in cooler here at the farm, so we rent theirs. Several other people, I think they're up to like 28 people rent over there. So they've got the shared kitchen. There's actually 2 shared kitchens, the blanching area, and then the big coolers. So they rent it out to offset their costs of operating the food bank. So when we harvest, we take it over to the food bank, store it in big coolers over there, and then it comes out of there to go to the restaurants when we sell. But we would like to put a small retail spot in eventually here at the farm. Just people just stop in with us being downtown, wondering what we do. But yeah, the food bank has been a tremendous help. I think we have probably 18 spaces and 18 pallet spaces in the big cooler over there for storage.
Well, that's very interesting. Everybody is. So any more questions for anybody or anything else that you want the guys to discuss with you? Does anybody have anything they'd like to add and tell us more about their businesses and how you can operate?
Michael, this is Ken Zimmerman again. Just wanted to mention second Ben's assessment of being a people watcher. When I was in the corporate world, did a lot of trade shows, and people would say, well, why don't you just send your people to trade shows, because those are hard. I says, but then I can't read the people. I can't get that feeling directly from there. And that is one of the things about being an owner, being at the market. You get that feeling, that interaction, the feedback directly from the consumer. And there is no substitute for that.
So how do people that are possibly a little more recluse or introverted become open, and what's your advice for that?
I am not sure I have any advice for that, because by the time you get to this age, if you aren't that way, you are probably not going to develop that in a 12-step process.
I think there are cases where people have warmed up. I mean, a lot of personalities, they're awkward with strangers, but if you know somebody, a lot of times their shyness goes away. And I think that's part of the market, is because it's so much of a community and a gathering that warmness helps offset any awkwardness. And so they become a little bit more outspoken. Ken and Ben both touched on being present at the booth. And I would agree that when I have a vendor that doesn't do very well, and they're frustrated, a lot of times they're sitting on a chair, they're playing on their phone, and they're not present in the booth. And that really detracts. And, there's a huge burden that they place back on the market for them not being successful, but it's actually more on them than on the market. The market's responsible for making sure the place is rented, the lights are on, the toilet's flush, that kind of thing. But at a certain extent, it really does fall back onto the vendor. It could be a pricing issue, it could be a quality issue, or it could be something just as simple as what they talked about, as being present and innovative in their presentation. I mean, even Marilyn with the Tree Frog Farm, she had to figure out what attracted the vendors to her booth, and color was huge for her, and the t-shirts and things of that nature. Sometimes it's something so simple to garner someone's attention. And as a consumer, you're right, all the white tents look alike, all the red tents look alike, and at a certain point, when the markets are so large, people become confused. So it's important for you to distinguish yourself and mention your location so they can find you again.
Hey,
I would
Chris.
just like,
Oh, sorry, Ken.
I would just like to add that if you're looking at the farmers market as your avenue to success, all it is the store. It is the overall store. You are one aisle in that store, and you have to make sure that that store, every aisle in that store, is successful, because they bring other customers to you also. And it can't just be, I'm here for me. The whole store has to succeed for you to be successful. And that's why you also want other good, strong vendors that are also abiding by the rules. And that way they don't drag you down, and you hopefully lift them up also, because you are just one aisle in the store, and everybody has to be successful for you to be successful.
I agree with that, because even though I was a vendor that then just walked away and just became running the market, when I moved up here from Wabash in 2011, I had people that drove here from that region to buy my products, and then they started buying other people's products and became regular shoppers. And so if every vendor marketed and developed the relationships, and they all each brought, let's say, 20 shoppers to the market. 20 times 70 is 100 and 1,400 people. So if you're not getting 1,400 people, then somebody's not holding up their end of the bargain.
Chris, I had a question. So your mission is obviously to employ those with employment barriers, and I think that's awesome. Has that been an element in your customer base? Obviously, you're not doing it to increase customers, but has it been an aspect that has brought in more people to buy your product?
Yeah, I think it probably has, because we also go to places where there's employment gatherings, where people are putting on things for hiring events and such. So we always put up our farm stuff. This is the banner behind me is what we have hanging at the farmers market, and we would take that to places like that. We haven't done it much because of COVID, but yeah, definitely, I'm sure it does help a little bit. And we do like an 8.5 by 11 that we give like to the restaurants. They can put out and explain our mission and what we do and where the mushrooms are coming from. From what Ken was saying, though, it does really help for the outgoingness at the market and engaging the people. But if you aren't very good with that, which some of our employees aren't so good, maybe with their communication skills, signage, like just putting up signs that start the conversation. People are really interested in mushrooms. We put up like recipes, things like that, that just kind of like get them started into the conversation about mushrooms, what they can be used for, and it kind of kicks off that interaction.
I really have to say thank you for all the speakers today. This has been one of the better ones, one of the best ones we've done. I'm still can't get out of my mind Ken in a hot pink apron, but guess I'll have to think about that the rest of the day. Ben, you got anything else you want to add? I know I hate I kind of cut you off before, so I know you can always have more. Can you have to go off mute. You're muted.
No, I think everything is great. So everybody's got their own. Everybody's business is so different, but we all meet at one place, every Saturday, to live through it, have fun with it, and that's what drives it and makes it so much fun. So I mean, everybody's got their own individual passions. Like I don't know a single thing about mushrooms. I don't know a lot. I really, with this greenhouse endeavor I'm going on, like I said previously, no history growing anything. I'm gonna, it's a learning experience, but you get through it one way or another. And it's whether it's asking, you just have to sometimes ask for help and roll with the punches, but it's another aspect of the business that certified organic produce or just good, whatever it may be, is all I can give my customer is what I can raise, and the only way I know how, and the best quality product at the end of the day. So that's what's important for me. So to give my customer base the best quality that I can honestly provide. That's what makes it all happen.
Yep. And if anybody's asked or thinking about what Ben was saying about the taxes, there's a whole different assessment for farm ground versus a residential lot of, even if it was farm previous. Is that what you were saying by that?
Yes. So when the property transferred ownership, they reassessed it from an agricultural standpoint. They reevaluated the aerials for the ArcGIS system, I believe is what they use, and they reassessed it as excess residential. So they were thinking they recategorized it as, oh, well, now you're just a house with tons of ground. So it was shocking. I mean, it was honestly one of those shocking, but you know, but at the end of the day, you ask yourself, how am I going to overcome it? But it's all about, you know, I'm very good on the phone. I just call people, and somebody knows what they're doing. You just got to get to that person. There's always somebody who knows how to play the game. So, and it just, but you make relationships. So, but there's the, you know, but I never knew, I would have never known about farmers markets, about chickens, pigs, charcuterie, greenhouses, if it all hadn't happened for a reason.
So if you've gotten the background noise that from me here, that's my granddaughter, a 1-year-old, is really enjoying her morning. So sorry if I've disturbed anybody.
Sounds like
I'd also like to
do.
it's really a good thing to have around the house. They're just visiting from New Mexico. So I want to give a shout out to what Tim Bamba, he's with the NRCS, the Natural Resources Conservation Service. The Farm Service Agency is available. The Extension Agent from Purdue is available. All good resources for anybody that wants to move in the direction of another product or more training, more experience. The Master Gardener program is really great over there with the extension agents doing good things. So the SWCD. So
I also think is if somebody's looking to expand their business and go to farmers markets to test a product, because we have a lot of people who join and then open retail stores. So it's kind of a proving ground for recipes and things of that nature. You know, GK is an excellent example. Blessing Moon was with us. You know, she moved from Hawaii and started her business, you know, through the farmers market, and we helped her go through all the guidelines. So, I mean, there's a lot of growth potential going through the farm markets, but finding the farm market that works for you is the most important thing, because when I talked, you know, at different colleges, it's about, you know, you have to figure out what you want for yourself, for your business, and out of the farm market, and then find one that works for you.
I have to get myself unmuted. You're going to have to listen to her some more. I think this is a great way to end the day. This has been wonderful. I want to invite everyone to August 17th to our next coffee. It's going to be called Coffee and Urban Agriculture. So there's the things. We have Neam Edwards from Michigan State University and Jennifer Nettles from Vincennes. So that's going to be a great thing. Urban agriculture and small farms is definitely an area that's that there's a lot of it around, but not understood. So thank you, everyone. This will be available on, and you can get the link from the Allen County SWCD website. When Joelle gets it put up. So again, thanks everybody for talking and joining us.
So good to see everybody. Have a great one.